What's up everyone, welcome back to Beyond ARTV. My name is John and it's time for episode number 4 of my series Common Ground, a show where I take 5 different songs from 5 different artists that have the same word or else variation of a word in their title, and then I try to see what the missing link is. Is there something that ties all 5 of these tracks together? What fuels them? And today we're talking about witches. Whether we're hunting them, looking for them, or just using them as a descriptive term for a woman, we're gonna dive into all that good stuff. But before we do so, I just have to say, unfortunately, this series is kind of on life support because the people that really love it, you guys love it, and you're so kind to it, and I so appreciate you. But if you do me a favor right now, like bomb this video so that YouTube actually recommends it to people, because this show, while it doesn't pull a ton of viewers, it's near and dear to my heart. I like this idea. I think it was original and fresh. I really like making it, but unfortunately, I don't get around to it very often because not that many people watch. Anyways, to jump right into things, the Merriam-Webster Dictionary defines witch as one that is credited with usually malignant supernatural powers, an ugly old woman or a hag, a charming or alluring girl or woman, or something else to do with some sort of religious practice. Quote-unquote witches went through a lot of trials and tribulations. In fact, a lot of it was just downright fake. We're going to talk about the Salem witch trials, among other things, but now it's more so looked at as a term that we think about on October 31st. It's a part of Halloween festivities, especially in the United States. Anyways, what did these 5 artists have in mind when they used witch in their title? Is it something that maybe just was a placeholder, or is it something deeper that actually has a connection to many of the other tracks that use the same title? We're gonna dive straight into that, and my first selection is from Bloc Party.
Now is not the time for little old boy, so I go hunting for witches.
Let me just say that Hunting for Witches by Bloc Party is incredibly fun to listen to. I get so much pleasure each time this pops up. This is from their underrated second album, A Weekend in the City, that followed up their massive, critically acclaimed debut, Silent Alarm. But I felt that this track was always maybe a bit underserved, at least in terms of how Silent Alarm was received. This song has these fast-paced, electrifying guitars that are so different, a little bit of a wayward sidestep, but after that eerie synth drip of an intro and then those guitars kind of colliding and then Kelly's voice just powering this track, it's a monster of a tune. And why is witch used in the title? Well, because the mainstream media likes to fuel the frenzy. Hunting for witches doesn't actually refer to going out and looking for a lady in black with a black cat actually on her shirt or something like it's some sort of sign. No, we're talking about the witches, aka the people that like to stir up the controversy. Hunting for witches. Who is the next victim? Who can we scare the people with next? This is actually a message that still rings true in the modern age more so than ever before, because this track came out in the mid-2000s when, yes, the mainstream media was feeding us a lot of different stuff. And while news is important to gather, it's always also important to double-check your sources. And Hunting for Witches talks about the fact that we are just sent into a panic over everything, causing us to be even further divided. And like I said, look at the times that we're living in now. This track is something that sees the narrator going from childhood innocence to actually going to internal panic and anxiety because of everything that he's seeing around him. And he's saying, am I supposed to go out and hunt for the next person, or am I just supposed to live my own life?
Ask yourself, will I burn in hell? Then write it down and cast it in the well.
Well, we're certainly starting off strong because we're 2 for 2 on the creepy factor, y'all. At number 2 on the list today, we have Burn the Witch by the rock band Queens of the Stone Age, fronted by Josh Homme. This is a very ominous tune with some guitars and some kind of stop-start motions with the drums and guitar combo that just feels so dark, almost twisted in a little way. It feels like we've walked in on a ritual. And I always felt that the Lullabies to Paralyze album cover should have just been the single art for Burn the Witch as well. I don't know why this sums it all up so well to me, but it's perfection bottled into a track. For the longest time, this song actually kept its secret meaning tucked away, but then Josh Homme let loose one day and talked about the different interpretations of the song, and then revealing that it was indeed about Nick Oliveri getting kicked out of the band band by Josh himself, being replaced and being demoted, basically saying that you're no longer with Queens of the Stone Age, and how he felt the impact of the fans' wrath and everybody else around him saying, why would you make this move? Burn the witch, burn to ash and stone. He's talking about the witch being himself. He's hunted and everybody's out for blood. I think that this song did a great job at keeping enough of mystery surrounding it so that people didn't immediately know, but now listening to it years on, it makes total sense, and it's still one of my favorites from Queens of the Stone Age.
We all hang high, 20 innocents. We all accused, 20 innocents.
I told you that the Salem witch trials were going to come into play. I mean, how could it not? Obviously, if we're talking about witches, maybe we should actually have a song that is talking about real witches, or else the ones that people at the time of the Salem witch trials thought were witches. Rob Zombie is next on the list with an eccentric song off of his album Educated Horses that released in 2006. This is titled American Witch, and it is pretty literal. It's a heavier song, of course. It's Rob Zombie. There's some metal influences, some hard rock. It's something that definitely pushes an agenda in your face, but here, I would say it's a good agenda. I'm not necessarily a huge Rob Zombie fan, but I like the way that this track presents itself. It talks about the 20 innocents over and over again, and you're wondering, what are the 20 innocents? It's referring to the 20 different people that lost their lives as a result of the Salem witch trials. These people were stoned, they were brutally killed, or else sacrificed, burned at the stake, because people actually thought that they had supernatural powers. Just think about this. This was the time that people were living in. How scary to just be a woman in general, I suppose, but also to be thought to be a witch? I mean, come on.
Must be the season of the witch.
As we inch our way closer to the finish line for the 5 tracks that we'll be talking about today, I've got a selection from the 60s right here, a very popular song by the artist known as Donovan. It's called Season of the Witch. I would call this song an outright classic, and you'll take a psychedelic trip with the popular 60s artist Donovan, although not exactly the good kind of trip that you might be envisioning. Paranoia, delusion, the blaming of a certain season for the narrator's current state of mind is something that makes him feel entrapped, and I think that this track implies that the person is in a mental institution, he's locked away somewhere, and he's looking out at life. He's on the inside, and this track kind of seems cheery musically, but it flips things to something much darker as we start to see a portrait of somebody that's looking out on life through the blinds, maybe through the chains, even the bars on the window, and they see all of the chaotic situations that were taking place during the 1960s, because despite the fact that people think it's about peace and love all the time and all the hippies, that's not entirely what was going on. There were a lot of racial divides and so many other things going on politically at the time. Corruption, greed, chaos in the streets. The 60s weren't exactly a great place, and I feel that Season of the Witch is the narrator blaming the whole season, this whole decade, for the chaos that's going on, maybe even pushing him to his own insanity.
Ever since we met, I only shoot up with your perfume.
What a beautiful, well-layered song to close out on. Not only for this list today, with it being the final song that we'll discuss, but also being the closing track from Panic at the Disco's 2011 record Vices and Virtues. This is Nearly Witches Ever Since We Met. Now, it's worth noting that witches is never actually said in this song, it's more so alluded to, which I can respect big time. This song was originally written by Ryan Ross, but it was completed by Brendan Urie and Spencer Smith after his exit from the band. Brendan Urie splits a unique Baroque alternative intro with an almost magical Disney Kingdom-style chorus as he describes how he's haunted by this woman that he's in love with, her scent, her smile, her charm. It follows! As I mentioned before, I think that the characteristics of a witch are described here, but it's never directly referenced, which makes you kind of wonder. It leaves a little something to the mind, which is always a nice touch. So now that we've discussed all 5 songs that have some variation of the same word witch in their title, what do all these songs have in common, if anything at all? What's the common ground here? I think fear is the unifying factor that brings all of these songs closer together. There's a fear and a phobia for everything that we as human beings experience, but we're all different, so we get to see a glimpse into 5 different types of fear that maybe kind of all amalgamate in one place in these 5 songs. American Witch, for example, attempts to write from the perspective of living during the time of the Salem witch trials and the anger that should have been felt by more of those surrounding the innocent people that were killed. On the Bloc Party track, it was What If Political Corruption Ruins My Life? Nearly Witches subliminally signals that while he's riding high on love for now, what if this witchy woman breaks his heart and leaves all the pieces for somebody else to sweep into a dustpan? And then on Burn the Witch, I feel that things are maybe a bit more straightforward and easy to understand there if we roll with my interpretation of the track. It seems that Josh Homme had a fear about him, that the house that Queens of the Stone Age built maybe was going to crumble because everybody perceived him as this bad person because he fired a member of the band that was pretty well liked. Go ahead and follow my Spotify playlist that I've created for Season 1 of Common Ground, which is going to be linked in the pinned comment or else in the description down below. You can listen to these 5 songs about witches for yourself and decide if you think I'm right in saying that fear is the unifying factor, the common ground. I hope that you guys enjoyed this episode of the show. Remember to show it some love by dropping a like on this video and subscribing with that bell rung so that you get notified when I post another one in the future. If you want to catch up on the entire Common Ground series, there's a couple more episodes out and I really appreciate your support on those, then tap this playlist link right here. All of my social media accounts can be found in the description down below, including my Instagram. Go follow me at ARTV Reviews, another video right here, and I will see you soon for more on Beyond ARTV.